Bruce Perry, yeah. And I heard him 5 years ago in Belfast. I was there with my daughter, and we were the only father and daughter couple in the same ministry. She is a psychologist. So, anyhow, that psychiatrist said, I have a bad message for the man. So all the men looking, what's going on? He said, you see, there are things which cannot be reached by words. They can only reach by touch. And then I saw some psychiatrists already squirm, you see, in the chair, as if they would have to touch the patients. They're sitting at this side of the desk in a white coat, and the patient's at the other side. And then he said, let me show you. And he showed then slides when people are touched by words, what lights up in the brain, and what lights up when they are touched, when they put the hand in the neck and on the belly. Well, my daughter looked at me and says, Dad, you've been doing that for years. Yeah. Only in my situation, the Lord had guided me to do that. Yeah. And it was so interesting when the belly and the neck were being touched, other areas in the brain lit up, and he said, this is the only way how you can have these areas touched, and then usually areas which are traumatic then start to lighten up. And so I just felt that I should bless it. Mm-hmm. Now it could be that it didn't fit at all. But then that's not so bad, because you're blessing. Yeah. And you see, usually when I pray like that, I keep my eyes open, because I had a friend who was once praying, had his hand above the lady, and suddenly heard the people snicker. What's happening? And the woman was laying on the floor, and he had her wig in his hands. So keep this in mind, please. Have your eyes open when something happens, because he was praying, you see, praying. So, but also once I was praying, and a theological student came to me and he said, could you bless me? I said, sure. What do you want? He says, it's okay, whatever. He didn't want to talk about things. So he stood there and nothing came. No thought, no sense, no feeling, nothing. At least 3 minutes. And 3 minutes standing silent is a long time. And suddenly there came like a cry up. Why? And that's what I said. Why? He looked up at me, he said, thank you. He walked up and left. 10 years I've wondered about that man, because I have not met him. And 10 years later, he says, Theo, do you remember me? I says, I'm sorry, sir, no. He says, you remember the why? I said, oh, was it you? He said, yes. Let me tell you, that one word was for me the key. That's all what I needed. I walked away. And 10 years long I've said, time and again I've thought about that, and I said, Lord, what's happening to that man? And why didn't you speak anything? And I didn't feel any condemnation. Not any good, well done, Theo. Just nothing. 10 years. These things happen, you see. So let God work. Other people have very sensitive hands. They feel things in their hands. I have one co-worker in Oslo, in Austria, and she actually feels in her body where the people are hurting. And she can go instantly start feeling sick. She's very healthy. Suddenly, I sense I need to throw up. And she talks to the Lord about it. Yeah, there is something there in that area. And the Lord uses her body to pick up the feelings of the people. Yeah? Well, it's a gift.
What about when I took a deep breath?
Because then he has to verbalize feelings. And that's a huge process. So I seldom do that. Explain not only the name of God and not about touch, but also about if they sense they have had enough, they can simply show that through changing body. He could have told them, if it's enough, you just stand up, then it's okay, then I know I'm finished. Or anything, or just say, no, thank you. You see, I learned that once because I was in a church service. I had been speaking there, and the local pastor said, Theo, I really think you need a touch of peace yourself. I said, you are so right, sir. So I sat down, and the elders came and stood around me, and I had noticed that one had come behind me. And so, and he blessed me in a wonderful way, and I was so relaxed. Hallelujah. I said it out like that, you see. Yes. And then the fellow behind me took my head and says, and Lord, help Theo to stand on his feet in faith. And I was just so relaxed. I was totally out of place. And then I learned what I can do to stop it. I stood up. I turned around to say, thank you, brother, because I'm an encourager. And there was the door. And I went. I said, thank you, folks, this was excellent, that was fine, especially what the pastor said. I didn't confront him. That was not my place, my situation then. But I have used this time and again, this story, to tell, please don't stand behind anyone who is traumatized. Because they don't have control on what is happening.
Amen.
They need control. Yeah? And I honor that control. One of the things how I listen to people, you see. I listen if I pick up different signals. If I hear, if they say something, but they show something else too. It's not conflict, because many people have actually parts in their brain. Some some parts which could not grow because it didn't get enough attention, and other parts which have grown too much. So, and when he understood that some parts of the brain were left behind, and other parts had therefore grown more, you see, one time a missionary said to me, Theo, I've heard a beautiful sermon from your dad. Now my dad didn't know a word English, so I knew it wasn't my dad. So I said, can you tell me what its theme was? He said, I said, I'm sorry, that was not my dad, that was me. He became so angry, he said, that's not possible. You talk like an old man. But I was 35 then. You see, but some parts in my speaking and in my experience had grown way beyond my age. And when that happens, you always have to look also to the other side. What has been left behind? And then you can start working on that. So often I bless the brain and ask the Lord to do something on the blood, that some areas which haven't gotten enough food, that the blood vessels will grow and things like that. I have very strange medical prayers at times. But the aim is that we develop as a whole personality. Because I see people as a diamond with different sides. Some bigger, some smaller. One, for instance, man can change in about 3-4 seconds from little boy into an adult man.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yeah. Women need about 20 minutes. One of my clients told me that his wife was laying in bed and she was crying. He says, what's wrong? Well, it doesn't matter. No, what's wrong, darling? Well, and then she told what one of her daughters had done. And the fellow got so angry, he says, I'm going to... She said, please not, I've already taken care of it. Okay, he fell back in bed. And she was still sniffing a bit. He did this, he said, and then he looked at his wife and said, I've got actually a very beautiful wife. And he gave some of the signals he wanted a bit more. And he said, please not now. He says, okay. And he told me, I told the Lord, I'm a normal man, Lord, please. What do I do now? The Lord said, go to the kitchen and get something to eat and drink. So we went to the kitchen, came back with a tray with some wine and some cheese, and they had a little party. 20 minutes later, she says, why don't you come? And he said, it was so. He had a good time. See, and it made it so clear to me, the example, women have a harder time to change from little girl to adult woman. The emotions are too stirred and too upset, and I don't all know how that works. But I know that a man can change in 3-4 seconds. So, when you keep that in mind, then that helps already a lot. You can always go to the kitchen and get something to eat and drink. So, and the interesting thing is that especially with abuse survivors, they need to understand this, that one part of their brain in the area of sexuality is still young, because they got wounded and they didn't grow on. All the other parts grew on, but they didn't. And so they were adults, they were engaged, and the boys were so neat and so positive and so gentlemen and so on. And then they would marry, and then everything had to happen. And then they went back to the little girl again. And that doesn't work. So then he says, okay, yes. And one woman in Norway told, about 45 years ago, told me, Theo, am I crazy? I said, why? Well, she says, my head says it's okay, but my body says, please not. Then I understood enough. And so the Lord helped me to tell them that they had to take care of that little girl. And one of the things they can do, they simply need to take a symbol. A puppet from the youth, or they have to go and buy a puppet, or they have to take a teddy bear or something, but they need a symbol for themselves. And then they need to read a story to the teddy bear, to the puppet. I believe in Jesus and teddy bears, by the way. My statement of faith is I believe in Jesus and in teddy bears. And so, and they need then to put the teddy bear to bed in another room. And when they first discover that they have a young part in them, I say in the Western world, ask your partner for 3 months vacation from sex. And that you then will take initiative yourself after 3 months. Then privately I tell them, without a partner there, but when you want it before the time, you can break. These are some of the adventures, and it's really risky business. Because it could also go that someone says, well, I don't like what's happening. And then I would congratulate them and say, well, thank you for being in touch with your feelings. I bless your sensitivity, and if you don't like what's happening, then it's obviously that we should stop. I would not feel offended. See, many times counselees are trying to protect us. They have found in Holland that it takes about 5 counselors before a woman really starts to talk about her sexual abuse.
Different counselors, you mean? Or
Different counselors. And I don't know if the counselors taught them to share, that they could talk about it, or what. My idea is that they simply don't dare to talk about it because this is such a terrible thing what has happened to me, and that poor counselor, she or he has to hear all that stuff. Oh no. I just share a little bit. And then, so this is where you need to warn yourself, listen attentively, with open eyes, and whatever you hear, believe it. Do not show any doubt or any question, because the moment you do that, they shut up. Now I know that some people might have created a bigger problem than it was, but usually they describe a smaller problem than in reality. And they need to see that you really are there and that you believe them, but not just subjectively, because you were not there. And the Lord can then, in due time, when His light starts to shine, can then show them what really happened. I think of one girl who was hypnotically induced that she was in labor. And she gave birth to a child. And she actually heard the child cry. And they took the child away. And they said, if you ever talk about what happened in our group, then we'll kill the child. Well, I got her at one time so far that she could tell that she was in that group. Some type of a criminal group. And then she started to weep, because now they're killing my daughter, because they know what I'm doing. She's now a scientist, has an excellent job, and when she was for her final exams, she suddenly called me. She says, Theo, I'm looking at my notes and sometimes my handwriting changes. And I'm reading something, I know I have written it, but I don't understand a word of it. And says, okay. All of you, I said through the telephone, please listen. The adult one wants to take this exam and she can do it. Please all cooperate, because it's good for all of you. And I blessed them all in the name of Jesus. She went to take the exam. It was the best exam ever in that subject, ever given. She had the best results ever in history for the university. And she's now a top scientist. But I met her again 10 years later. I said, have you sometimes thought about your daughter? What had happened? She says, I know it wasn't real, because now I have children, and I know what I experienced then and what I experience now is not the same. But I didn't know that then. But they put the lie in her mind that if she would talk, they would kill the girl. So she was heartbroken when she had told me what had happened in the group. So you need to believe a person, and I've always operated under the function, even prayed for the little baby with her, for the little girl then. Whereas after some time, she was about 6 or so. And we just blessed her. So accept a person who she is. And whatever situation, later on when the Lord shines with His light, He can then show, no, this has happened, that has happened, not this, or whatever. Yeah?